sunny day. A nice warm day. But not every weather is nice and warm. Some weathers are too hot. Some weathers are too cold. And some weathers destroy everything in their place and kill humans and animals on land and in the sea. The weather, one of the most destructive tools that nature has ever used. Around the equator, there are tropical seasons, like the rainy season and the dry season. But around the northern hemisphere, there are seasons like spring, summer, autumn and winter. But long ago, these weathers were not always like this. The Earth's climate used to be hot and wet. Even before the age of the dinosaur, the weather was even more different.
So the Earth's climate has changed dramatically many times since the planet was formed over 4.5 billion years ago, and lots of those changes have been triggered because of the drifting continents and movement of the oceans, but also the sun's intensity and variation that actually happened in the Earth's orbit. On top of that, we've got greenhouse gases contributing towards our climate, which could be produced by volcanic eruptions and evolution of life on the planet, and also meteorite impacts have all contributed towards different climate change. And we know that millions of years ago, the average global temperature was actually a few degrees warmer and higher than it is today. So we had lots of tropical waters across the planet, and that resulted in different patterns in ocean movement and atmospheric circulation. So that would make a difference in the weather pattern that we would have seen today. And we have particular scientists that go out and explore what the weather patterns, what the climate was like millions of years ago. And they explore that element by looking at ice cores. So they go somewhere like the Antarctica and drill into the ground, even miles into the ground, and take out particular types of ice cores or sediments from the bottom of the lake. And they'll have a look at what's trapped inside of it and hopefully find little bubbles of air, and they can analyse the bubbles of air and see how much carbon dioxide those bubbles contain, and that gives an indication about what the temperature was like and what the water might have been like, and so the ice and sort of other elements that they can examine to see what the climate was like millions of years ago. And we call those particular type of scientists paleoclimatologists. So it's a pretty interesting form of science to study.
There are all kinds of weathers. You would know them as rainstorms, thunderstorms, heat wave, sandstorms, windstorms, snowstorms, hailstorms, clear sky, and fog. Usually rainstorms replenish the land with water, so plants, animals, and humans can have more water supply. Thunderstorms only appear when the atmosphere is hot, and that's what thunderstorms are here for, to cool down the air. In England, the weather is usually sunshine and rainstorm, but during winter, there are also snowstorms. In North America, the weather is like that of England, but they also have thunderstorms that England rarely gets. There are also tornadoes and hurricanes in North America. In hot places like Africa and Australia, they have heat wave and rain doesn't appear much, since these places have only two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. But just up north in Africa is the driest place on Earth, the Sahara Desert. From Morocco to Egypt, there are no snowstorms, only sandstorms and heat waves. In these places in North Africa, there is hardly any rain, but most likely thunderstorms could appear through the low, dry layers in the desert atmosphere. But now with global warming around the northern hemisphere, thunderstorms are beginning to happen more frequently. On the 9th of February 2020, there was a storm with strong wind that blew so much water around the northern Europe. If we don't do something to stop the global warming, the climate will change. Ice caps will melt, sea levels will rise, small islands, rivers and swamps will disappear by floodwaters. But in the mainland, water will be harder and harder to find. The dry season might become hotter and longer than normal. Most vegetations will be dry as the African savanna, and it will be easier for fire to start. And that's what happened in Australia. Great fires have burnt lots of the Australian habitats and houses. But could global warming cause something worse than thunder or windstorms? What if the hot atmosphere caused the volcanoes to erupt, or make the whole planet restless?
So climate scientists do believe that natural disasters are likely to increase with the climate change, and they believe it's linked. So besides just having a disastrous impact on our weather and warming climates and sea levels rising, it could actually trigger some catastrophic volcanic eruptions across the planet. And this is all to do with the fact that the glaciers around the volcanoes actually suppress and support the structure and stability of the volcano. So they're like protective layers of ice on top of it. And if they are triggered to melt and the ice starts melting away, then that can actually increase landslides and destabilise the magma sort of system inside of the volcano. So the more climate changes and the warmer it gets, the more likely that the ice is going to melt and remove the support from the tops of these volcanic mountains, cause landslides and ultimately trigger volcanic eruptions. And then that's going to become a bit of a climate change cycle, because actually the volcanoes start spewing out smoke and ash into the atmosphere, and that itself will also contribute to climate change. So it is a big problem.
So far, there has been a fire that burned most of Australia. Then there was a windstorm that caused floodwaters around the northern Europe. So perhaps with global warmings that is causing global sea levels to rise, that could eventually cause volcanoes to erupt. Even now, global warming could mean lots of volcanic eruptions in the future. Volcanic activity can make a greenhouse world, only that they lead to global warming. And during volcanic eruptions, it's not only fire and lava to worry about. Volcanoes can even pump a large amount of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. That could lead into an acidification in sea and sky. That can cause a mass extinction. So global warming could cause the same thing with volcanoes if more carbon dioxide and the addition of sulfur dioxide are pumped into the atmosphere. So in conclusion to this situation is that we stop burning coals and fossil fuel. This could stop global warming from getting even hotter, but it will only slow down the effects. After the extinctions of the dinosaur, the climate began to grow cold and dry. It took 49 million years for the climate to cool down. During those years, new kinds of plants and animals appear into existence and disappear into extinction due to the changing weather. And the animals we see today appear even before the Ice Age, so they would live in the time of the Ice Age, with the mammoths and the saber-toothed cats. Even through 100,000 years of a very, very, very cold climate. But sadly, when the Ice Age ended 10,000 years ago, most of the great megafauna had become extinct. But nature had recovered, and the animals we see today all lived in peace and harmony. Unfortunately, when human civilization arose, they took over the world. And during their takeovers, they've destroyed so many habitats, with so many trees they've cut down, and drove innocent animals like the moa the dodo, the great orc, and the Tasmanian tiger into extinction. Then mankind made everything even worse, with war on each other and global warming. Nature can recover. Unfortunately for us, we may not live for another 49 million years for the Earth to cool down. Yet someday, someone will find a fast way to cool down the atmosphere. But for now, all we can do is stop the global warming from getting hotter, for we have changed the world too much.